Thanks for joining us today. Today we're going to be talking about the remarkable, miraculous rescue of the 12, the soccer team, the Wild Boars in northern Thailand, that they were rescued from the cave successfully. All 13, the 12 boys and the coach are rescued. And we're going to talk a little bit about some redemptive analogies in this story and talk about how it relates to Reach a Village.
This story has been of great interest to us from the very beginning because I started my first missionary journey was in Thailand. And I often went into those mountains below that area, down further south of that particular chain. But I've been in that area, I've been around those mountains, and I knew the terrain. But beyond that, I knew the spiritual terrain of Thailand. And so this story broke my heart when I heard about these trapped children in the cave with their coach.
So let's talk a little bit about the story and how it relates to Reach a Village.
Well, number one, I think when I founded Reach a Village back in 2012, one of the things that was on my mind was that there are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of unreached villages. So what we really need to do is rescue them, So the reason this story sticks so close to me is that I can see the parallels of how people trapped in darkness need for somebody to come in and get them out, to help rescue them. So that's the big analogy that I take away from this. And that was one of my reasons for founding Reach a Village. For example, 150 years of missionary work in Thailand. And yet, of the 80,000 plus villages in Thailand, 76,000 villages still have no church, no believer, no Bibles. They're still sitting in darkness. So, this story, I could hardly watch the story without thinking about all of those unreached villages.
So next, another reason why we really like this story and its interest is it was a local emergency that created a global response. And at Reach a Village, we believe in partnering with people around the world in doing this rescue mission.
Yeah, if you want to look at this, Jesus as the great shepherd said, "Leave the 99 and go find the one lost sheep." He's willing to risk his life to find one. So he leaves the 99 and goes to find the one. So we take our key from our Lord Jesus. We're on the greatest rescue mission on earth, and that is to bring the gospel to every person that we possibly can. So any way you look at it, people are sitting in darkness. They're waiting on someone to come. They cannot save themselves. That was obvious about these boys. They'd been in there for days, and no one even knew if they were still dead or alive, if they were able to come out on their own in some time. But then the weather was bad, so every day looked more and more like it would be a recovery mission and not a rescue mission. And, how long can somebody sit in darkness under such terrible conditions and survive? And we have to ask ourselves that same thing. How long do people have to wait? How long do we have to wait before we reach in and try to rescue somebody that we know is lost? These are the kind of questions that wake me up at night. This is what keeps me going. I'm a rescuer. By nature, God has called me to join Him in the greatest rescue mission in the history of the world, and that is to bring salvation to as many villages as possible.
And I think what's really unique is the world really was watching, and the Thai nationals asked for some international help.
This, to me, was one of the great discoveries when I realized that right away they called in the Thai military, the Thai Navy SEALs, and they began to work hard to try to find these boys in some void back in the cave. They had some rough maps that they were going by, and they were doing all they could. But the more they attempted, the more they tried, the more they dove and got deeper into the cave, they realized they were going to have help. And so it became very quickly a call by the Thai officials, please help us. And we need some international help. And so great crowds of people actually ended up coming in, and a number of experts from around the world. And that was the beauty of it, that it became an international team effort to win, to get, to rescue these boys, to find them. Number one, they called people in before they were actually even found.
Right.
They realized, man, we need help even knowing where they are, or finding them if they are still alive. So the fact that they called in help early in the mission was actually very, very wise of them to realize that they needed this outside help.
Yeah. So we know that people from Canada, Australia, the UK were instrumental. There was also Chinese, people from Finland, Denmark, all involved in this rescue operation. American military and Navy on the scene, all helping, as well as lots of local Thai support, with the Navy SEALs kind of leading the operation. What was really unique about this was it was Thai-led. And I think that's something that we absolutely love and think is essential.
The one thing that did impress me right away was that the Thai took ownership of this situation, and they used their Navy SEALs. They set up a command center, and they went to work to try to remedy the situation themselves, to do as much as they could. Then at some point, they realized they needed more help. They were willing to call them in. But the Thai Navy SEALs, very capable, well-trained, and the Thai organizers, the people who were in charge of the province, that part of the province, they all kicked into gear. Volunteers started coming in from around the country, actually, of Thailand, early on in this incident. So, we kind of see the best of Thai culture, right in the beginning, and then we see the best of an international effort. And that's what's beautiful about this. It really is a picture of what it takes to do the hard thing to rescue people from darkness.
One thing that was also instrumental was the mapping of these cave systems. In order to find these kids, they had to figure out and navigate, because remember, this was zero visibility. So there was water flowing through these caves. It was monsoon season, so everything is getting stirred up, and they had no visibility. So they needed some way to navigate some general directions, and mapping was really critical.
Yeah, they termed it a search mission at first, because they didn't know whether they were dead or alive. They didn't even know where they were. So when it comes to a search mission, yeah, absolutely. You grid off territory, you begin to segment it off and assign teams to go into each area and look at that particular segment and see if the boys are in there or not. So mapping and actually recording those kind of things and analyzing it that closely, hands-on, people going up into the cave and searching out those parts of the caverns, the dry spots, the wet spots, the tight spots, the vertical, the horizontal. They mapped all of those kind of things as they went and marked them off. No, they're not in this section. They're not in this section. And then that enabled them to actually focus in on where they might be. They had some ideas on where they might be based on some old maps. And so they continued to move toward that area. And then ultimately, the two British divers found them.
Yeah. And that's why we love partnering with Dwight Martin and the Harvest database. and the mapping, and we're very interested in mapping the unreached areas, where the places where there are no church.
Yeah, we're in many countries, the national church is still even in the search mode. They're far outnumbered. They're so few and far between. They have no idea among themselves where there might be a church, or where the villages exactly are that have never been reached with the gospel. So the need for research and mapping and careful, detailed, okay, here's where the churches are, here's where the churches are not. These villages have not been reached. There's no Christians in this entire province. Those kind of things need to be made known for the Thai church to mobilize itself into those areas. So that's where we've done our best to try to bring mapping into the equation of church planting and church evangelism and discipleship. And so we try to map where the churches are, where the churches are not, where the greatest need is. And that's done on sites, for example, like thaichurches.org, which is part of the Harvest database of churches in Thailand. And if you look at the map of Thailand, you'll notice that up in that corner of Thailand, there are a lot of Christians. So if I thought to myself, even when I heard where the boys were, I said, well, there might be a Christian among them. There might be. But, knowing that 76,000 out of the 80,000 plus villages have no church, no believers, no Bibles, the chances were still very slim. So I was watching all of this, and kind of these statistics were rolling around in my head as I was hearing about the caves and where they were located. And I understood that they were near the Burmese border, so the border with Myanmar. And we found out then later, as the news started coming out, that the one boy who spoke English, among the midst of all of the Thai boys that were trapped when the British divers came up, there was only one of the boys who spoke English. And guess what? He was the believer. And he had been in a church. He had been learning English. But strangely enough, another important fact comes out about this young boy, and that was that he's actually from Myanmar, from Burma. And his parents had sent him across the border into Thailand. He's not really a Thai citizen. He's kind of like a persona non grata inside a country. He has no real paperwork to be there, but he was there at the mercy of a church and that had a school, and they were teaching him English. And so he was the Christian among them, and happened to be the one who could speak English and communicate with the British divers. That is the first little glimpse of the miracle of this cave rescue.
Mm-hmm. They had a local church there in Thailand praying for them and their rescue from day one.
Right.
So.
Right. As soon as the kids came up missing, that church went to prayer. And it's just a blessing. And by the way, that church is in the database, in the thaichurches.org. You can actually find that church that this young rescued boy came from. So the value of us knowing where the believers are, where they're not, and where the great need is a tremendous part of what we want to try to do and to make people aware. Those kids could have gone into that cave and died, and it might have made one little segment of news. One little clip, oh, the boys, today, they've been gone, all hope has been given up, and they're probably dead. And that'd be it. That'd be the headline. Yeah. But the rescue mission became a global news story where everybody was interested. Because once you find out that 12 kids and a coach are trapped inside a cave and they're still alive, I mean, everybody wanted to see them rescued. So what we want to try to do is, through Reach a Village, we want to try to let churches know, churches within Thailand know, as well as churches and Christians here in the United States, to know where the dark spots are. Where are the people who are still waiting to be rescued within a country? So we're mapping in the entire Southeast Asia region, and the Lord has been blessing and helping, and churches are being added to the database every day, and also these huge areas of unreached darkness are showing up on the map, and they're calling us. They're saying, how long are these people going to have to wait? When are you going to jump in? When are you going to start the rescue plan? Okay, the search phase of the mission is over, okay? You now know that there are no churches in this province. What are you going to do about it? Well, number one, I'm going to call in the local Navy SEALs. I'm going to call in the believers from that area, because they're the ones with the language and expertise and cultural background to actually lay out a plan. They know the landscape.
Yeah.
And so that's why we partner with indigenous local mission organizations and churches to be the ones to take the lead in the rescue mission of reaching villages for Christ.
Yeah, I thought it was very fascinating that once they decided, all right, it's extraction, we're getting them out, the oxygen levels had dropped, the waters were starting to rise, they said, we are down to this last option, is getting them out. And what they did was any non-essential people, push them away. Hey, we are doing this rescue. If you're not involved in the particulars of this rescue, please leave the area.
I thought that was very fascinating. It is a strategic call of the people on the ground who were in charge of that mission. These were Thai people.
Yeah.
And at some point, with all the media from around the world and all the volunteers and all the wonderful people that had come in to help, at some point, when it comes to extraction, when it comes to carrying out a delicate mission to pull people out of darkness, they wanted people who didn't know what they were doing to step back.
Yeah.
Step back and let the people do this who are trained for it. Let the people do this who have mapped and who have gone through this before. So right away I saw, wow, that's real wisdom. And that is part of the wisdom we follow at Reach a Village, in partnering with national leadership, national umbrella organizations, national mission organizations that have expertise in reaching unreached villages for Christ. And then these experts, as they move in, train others to do the same thing, and more and more and more villages are reached day by day. I could see the wisdom in that. And a lot of people have asked me, say, well, you're Reach a Village, and you know where all these unreached villages are. I bet you go into these unreached villages all the time. No, I do not. Why? Because the presence of me as a foreigner into a village that has never heard the gospel, in many, many, many cases, I would say almost the majority of cases, most cases, 90%, over 90% of the cases, complicates the rescue mission for the locals. I don't belong there. I don't have the expertise, the language, so why am I going in there taking pictures, doing a survey? I complicate the mission. So I thought it was so wise of this, the leadership in this rescue operation, when they said, every non-essential personnel back off. We're about to start the dangerous part.
Yeah.
The part that needs high skill levels, life or death commitment. Everybody else just leave the area. We're going to perimeter this, cordon off the perimeters, and you have to be out of this area. The people communicating with each other in this arena now are life and death situations. Would all non-essential personnel please leave? Wow. I know the feeling of that. I've been in places where there were villages and situations that needed to be reached. I didn't want to go anywhere near it. You and I were just in a place like that a couple weeks ago,
Yeah.
where for me to show up in that village probably would mean that the local believers that did exist would get their throats cut after we left. That kind of us knowing that and being aware of that our presence there was dangerous. We do not go into places like that. So, yes, I believe in reaching villages, but do I go into unreached villages? No. But do I visit reached villages? Do I go in and visit new house churches and watch people getting their first Bibles? Absolutely.
Amen.
There's the joy, you know. When the rescue's over, I have no problem walking in there and saying, praise God. Let me rejoice with you. I'm a brother too. I'm from the other side of the world, but you're my brother now in Jesus, you know. So these kind of things I saw working and playing out in real life, even in the military sense. There was that point at which non-essential personnel, people who don't need to be around, were asked to leave. And I really believe that that's one of the keys to the great success we're seeing. 2 to 3 villages every day being reached, unreached villages. 2 to 3 villages every day. Because I'm here. I'm not there. I wouldn't be able to reach 2 or 3 villages with the gospel every day. And actually plant a house church. But the locals on the ground, the Christian SEALs, as it were, those guys who are life and death committed, and women that move into those villages and share the gospel in the right language, in the right way. They know the hearts of the people. They know how to rescue them.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I love some of the description of these divers that said, you know, one mistake, one slip, and bringing them out of that cave, the mask could get bumped of these boys and they would drown. There would be no way to save them. That's a lot of responsibility. And, you know, I wouldn't want that kind of responsibility. Most of us would not. So we don't realize how serious it is to actually move into an unreached village, a dark area on the face of the earth, and begin to rescue people, and how much you care for them, and how much you don't want to damage. In your effort to rescue them, you can actually kill them. So that came out in this rescue too, that they realized they're still alive in the cave, but if we leave them there, they perish. They will certainly perish if we leave them there. The oxygen levels are dropping, the waste, and if they start getting infections, I mean, anything could happen, and there would immediately be casualties if we leave them. Is there a risk bringing them out? Yes, there was a risk. Yeah. But they were willing to take that risk, and they were the experts at how to bring those risks down to a minimum. And so that's the beauty of working with local people from the background of the religion of the country, from the background of the culture of the country, the language of the country. They can move in there and they know how to do it best. And sometimes all they need is just our help a little bit on the outside. You know, we may play a role, but they take the lead.
Yeah. And I thought one other comment I thought was really interesting. So once they asked all non-essential people to leave, then the rescuers themselves talked about removing the emotions from the situation. As they were getting very focused on rescuing, they had to remove their emotions.
That was a extremely wise thing to do. I've seen this very same thing happen in Christian circles. We get carried away. You know, our emotions drive us, and it keeps our head from being clear. And that's what these military guys understood very, very deeply. That, okay, stop. Move the emotions away from this. It's down to where we need to know what we're doing, and we need to carefully think about this, and we need to execute it.
Yeah.
We need to get in there and execute this plan. We need to work toward this strategy that we've practiced before. We've seen it work before, this particular method or technique. We're prayed up. We're ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the position that you have to take. I know we all would like to feel good about going and getting in the middle of something like this. I mean, it would make anybody feel good to go all the way over to Thailand and stand around and just pass out food. I mean, that's a wonderful thing to do, the volunteers, that are out there. So you can play a small part, but there was a point at which all non-essential personnel, please step back. Yeah. Anybody not assigned a task, please step back. We need only those people within their expertise now. Yeah. The mission is critical. So as much as we love you, you got to get out of the way. And there's even times when I felt that I say, where are we going on this trip? We're going to visit this. Can we visit this area? No, not a good time to visit that particular area of our country right now. Mm. We're not going to take you there.
Yeah.
Well, but I feel like I ought to go. I mean, I haven't seen that place yet. I could let my emotions get in there, but just like this mission director who understood, you got to pull your troops aside and say, okay, we're down to the serious stuff. I knew that this mission director was telling me something. This national leader was saying no, because by me following my emotions and wanting to go in there and see that area of the country and meet some, see the unreached village, it would actually bring the rescue mission to higher risk. Mm. So I trust those leaders like that to say, no, back off. Don't let your emotions go. Next time we'll visit it. Once we've reached those villages, we'll take you in there. We'll spend a week if you want to. Yeah. And you know what? Over these past 20 years of doing this, I totally agree with them. If they have the slightest bit of hesitation about me doing something, I go with I default to their understanding and their expertise. Yeah. In the rescue operation we're involved in. So no problem there with me. Yeah. Now I can't say my emotions don't get in the way. I mean, they're obvious even now. I can't talk about these things without feeling emotion and wanting to be involved. Yeah. See, I can jump on a plane tomorrow and go do something. But you know what I need to be doing? I need to be making sure that these brothers and sisters have what they need. Yeah. Bibles, training, and mobilization, mapping. All the kind of things we've been talking about, these logistics that other people brought into this cave rescue. They were using Israeli communications devices. Mm-hmm. The British were doing this. The Australian divers, one of them was the doctor who helped see to the physical care of the kids in the cave and on the way out, especially during the extraction. He was a very important key player. So yes, can we play a role? Yes. But in countries where the national church is taking a lead and they're calling on us to help, we don't need to go in and run the operation. We need to go in and say, well, what do you need? Yeah. Well, our communication, we need this. We don't have enough Bibles. We need some motorcycles to get these guys up into these mountains. It's so far up there that it takes days to get there. And if we just had a motorcycle, we could reach X number more villages in the same amount of time. Yeah. Those are the kind of requests I listen to, and I say, okay, my role, that's my role. Mm-hmm. I'm going to help mobilize and get these guys out there with the materials they need, the training they need, and do my part in the background to accelerate the movement of rescue. within that country. So I know my role. I know my role. And I can be passionate about what I do here, but I can't let that overrule what I know my role is in all this.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not the guy that's supposed to go in, kick down the door, and say, Jesus is here, you know. The kingdom of God has come. That's not me. That's not me.
Yeah.
Not in these places we're going. Villages that have not been reached in the last 2,000 years, and I think I'm going to be the guy to do it. That sounds like a lot of pride to me. If I think I'm the guy that's got to do that. No, the Lord is prepared and helped me be a part of reaching those villages, and I'm happy with my part.
Yeah. Well, that's why we're so excited to do what we do. We're so privileged. We're so blessed. And at the end of the day, this was miraculous. This rescue was, even the Thai Navy SEALs, after they accomplished it, they said, we're not sure if this was a miracle, a science, or what. And even all the expert divers, the people that were actually pulling it off, said we have a 60% chance that we'll pull this off. So, 6 out of the 10 would survive. And so the fact that it happened was miraculous. But we know that there were locals on the ground praying. We know that the world was praying. We know that we were praying for the situation, for the best possible outcome.
Yeah. So we're going to have a link with this video. We're going to have a web link for you to look at one of the best documentaries I've seen so far on this topic of this cave extraction. And I want you to pray before you watch it, not just for the information that you're going to get from watching this documentary about how this rescue was pulled off, but think about rescuing people from darkness. Think about reaching villages, inaccessible villages, how much it takes to actually get in there and bring the gospel to them and bring them from the kingdom of darkness into the kingdom of light, as the Apostle Paul put it. That's our role. We are involved in the greatest rescue mission in the history of the world.
Well, thank you so much for sticking with us throughout this, and we look forward to seeing you again in the future. Thank you.